Ciugamo wanja cia mũtharaba-inĩ, tũngĩciga mũno ngoro-inĩ citũ, ciatũruta kũmũcaria Mũkũri, ũrĩa watũkuĩrĩire mũtĩ-inĩ. Tũmũmathei Mwathani Mũkũri witũ, tũmũmathei Mwathani Mũkũri witũ. Nĩ kwarĩ nduma kuma thaa thita, nayo ĩgĩikara nginya thaa kenda. Gĩtama kĩa hekarũ gĩgĩatũka, kiugo gĩake kĩa mũthia nĩ gĩkĩ: We Ngai Baba, oya roho wakwa rĩu. We Ngai Baba, oya roho wakwa rĩu. Good evening and welcome to this devotion. Asante sana wale ambao wamepata kufika. Please take your seat, feel comfortable. And Joe Mudia, leo nimeona umefika mapema, kwa hivyo endelea na kukaribisha watu katika ibada ya jioni. Now, this is a quiet Saturday. And this being a quiet Saturday, nothing much is said about Saturday in Holy Week. And traditionally, even in churches, nothing much happens on Easter Saturday. The Saturday after Good Friday, people are just quiet and rested and just there. Yes. So there is even very little preaching about Saturday. But this Easter is different from the others that we have had, because this Easter, we are all at home because of this coronavirus. And therefore, it got me thinking very hard on to reflect on what exactly happened on Saturday after Christ was crucified. And there is nothing much written in the Gospels about this day. But Matthew has attempted to write something that has kind of gone unnoticed. Or at least for me, having been busy the whole week from Monday all the way to communion on Thursday evening and then Good Friday service, on Saturday, I have also over the years tended to just sleep on Saturday so that I can wake up on Sunday and go and preach about resurrection. And so even for me, I have not had a very deeper reflection on the Saturday in Holy Week until this time, because we are all at home, I had time to reflect, and therefore I am going to share my reflections with you, and they are captured in Matthew. We have been looking at the Gospel of Mark, but for this particular incident, for Saturday, it is Mark who has a little more to say on the things that happened on Saturday. So please turn with me to Matthew 27, Matthew 27. I'm reading from verse 57. Matthew 27:57, so that we can go back a little bit to Friday and then we can move on to Saturday. Okay, are you following? Good. Now, when evening had come, that is the evening of Friday, yesterday evening, so to speak. When evening had come, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. Well, this man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded the body to be given to him. When Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock. And he rolled a large stone against the door of the tomb and departed. And Mary Magdalene was there, and the other Mary, sitting opposite the tomb. Verse 62. On the next day, now this is Saturday, okay? On the next day, which followed the day of preparation, Friday was called the day of preparation. Preparation for what? Preparation for Saturday. What was Saturday? Saturday was the Sabbath. And this was not just an ordinary Sabbath. It was a special Sabbath because it was the Sabbath of the Passover. Remember, we celebrated Passover on Thursday. And then Friday is a day of preparation for the Sabbath. The Sabbath is Saturday. And this is a special Sabbath because it was a Sabbath of the season of Passover. Okay, so on the next day, which followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees gathered together to Pilate. Okay, saying, "Sir, we remember while he was still alive how that deceiver said, 'After 3 days I will rise.' Therefore, command that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away and say to the people, 'He has risen from the dead.' So the last deception will be worse than the first." Pilate said to them, "You have a guard. Go your way. Make it as secure as you know how." So they went and made the tomb secure, sealing the stone and setting the guard. That is Saturday for you. My reflections on Saturday. And as we reflect on the events of Saturday, I want to look at the characters of Saturday, the characters around the death of Jesus Christ and how they reacted on this Saturday. In fact, I am calling this theme the 36 hours lockdown. I am counting the hours from Friday evening, 12 hours to Saturday morning, 24 hours to Saturday evening, and 36 hours to Sunday morning. Because that is how the Jewish hours were calculated, and that is how even the idea of the 3rd day came. So I am looking at what is happening between the evening of Friday and the morning of Sunday. And I can tell you that they were in a lockdown. The entire Jerusalem was in a lockdown. They were behind closed doors. This was not only because Sabbath dictated that the day is observed away from work, but because of the events of Friday. Because there are two things that happened on Friday besides the death of Jesus Christ. And this is what happened on Friday. Friday at midday, there was darkness. There was an eclipse of the sun. There was total darkness on the land. And as if that is not enough, there was a great earthquake. So combine the earthquake and the darkness during the day, and you can tell that entire Jerusalem was more fearful than we are of the coronavirus. Everybody went to their own homes. And they didn't have a choice. I mean, for 3 hours, there was total darkness during the day, between the hours of midday and 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. So you can imagine the chaos and the pandemonium that was in Jerusalem in those 3 hours as people were scampering from Jerusalem, from the temple, and going to hide in their homes. The only people who had an easy time were the Roman soldiers, because there was an extra battalion that had been brought into Jerusalem for the week of the Passover because of the crowds that would come in. So they were patrolling there. And finally, they found that they were alone in the streets. But something else happened. The Bible says, and it is only Matthew who records this, he says that the graves of the righteous people were opened. And so you can imagine that Saturday, that Friday, during the darkness and the mayhem that ensued, people were walking from the grave. What I don't know is whether they were dressed or whether they were naked. And they walked. They resurrected. I am sure when they went and saw the soldiers patrolling the streets, they must have gone to ask for directions from the soldiers. And guess what? The soldiers must have fled. That is not written in the Bible, but at least if you look at Matthew 27 verse 51, just in case you think I am cooking this up, it is necessary that you read again Matthew 27 and verse 51. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And so, by the time evening came, apart from the Roman soldiers who were patrolling the streets of Jerusalem, there was not a soul in sight. Everybody else was behind closed doors. By the time Jesus is dying, later Friday afternoon, late afternoon, everybody had scampered to safety, except the women who were following Jesus closely, and one disciple by the name of John. Remember that song about the 7 words of the cross? The Kikuyu version says in one stanza, Kumareu oyo newe maito gwo, nawe maito oyo newe morogwo. Ciugo icio nĩcio Jesu oigire, nĩ ũndũ wake hagĩa gũtigendwa ke. Tũmũmathei, tũmũmathei Mwathani mũkũri witũ. Tũmũmathei, tũmũmathei Mwathani mũkũri witũ. This was the beloved disciple, John, the author of John the Gospel, the disciple of Jesus Christ. He is the one who was given charge over Mary, the mother of Jesus. So, these are the only few people that remained to see the whole thing end. Some women, John, and then there is a guy here who was following these from a distance, and that is Joseph of Arimathea. And so Joseph of Arimathea, once he ascertained that Jesus was dead, he went back to Pilate, and he went to ask for the permission to go and bury the body. Now, tradition has it that because it was impossible for Joseph of Arimathea to handle the body of the Lord alone, tradition has it that he was accompanied by a fellow called Nicodemus, whom we read about in the Gospel of John chapter 3, a guy also who was part of the Sanhedrin and who had visited Jesus at night. Remember that story? Well, that is a story for another day. It is in John chapter 3. Now, let us look at these characters of Saturday. We don't have time. I don't have time to talk about all of them. So I will not be able to talk about all the characters. I found that there were many, but I will talk about the few, and then I will mention in passing the others. God willing, if we have enough time, another time we shall look at them more deeply. But the first character that we want to look at are the high priests and the Pharisees. These are the people who are responsible for the killing of Jesus Christ. Now, what happened to them on Saturday? This is what they did. They broke the Sabbath law. Sabbath was not a day for meetings. Sabbath was not a day for handling business. But you know what? Something had happened, and these people were shaken to the core. Friday night they did not sleep, because when there was the eclipse of the sun and there was an earthquake and people fled to their homes, something extraordinary happened in Jerusalem, in the temple. The temple curtain that blocked the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple was torn apart. Nĩ kwarĩ nduma kuma thaa thita, nayo ĩgĩikara nginya thaa kenda. Gĩtama kĩa hekarũ gĩgĩatũka, kiugo gĩake kĩa mũthia nĩ gĩkĩ. The curtain was torn into two. The Holy of Holies was exposed. Except the high priest, even the rest of the priesthood had never seen the inside of the Holy of Holies. So on Friday night, they did not sleep. How could they sleep when God was exposed in the temple? Because according to them, they had come to see the inside of the Holy of Holies, not as a symbolic place for the presence of God, but for an actual place for the presence of God. Now the curtain had been torn. And so, Saturday morning, they convened again. On the next day, which followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees gathered together, and they went to see Pilate. They broke their own law. They broke the Sabbath law. And they went to see Pilate to tell him that Jesus had said that he would rise again on the third day. And therefore, they were not at ease. They wanted the tomb secured. And so their Saturday was a horrible day. They had the longest 36 hours to wait until Saturday morning, only to be confronted by worse news. And so, the Pharisees and the chief priests, there they are, going to Pilate. Pilate had had enough. Which brings me to the character of Pilate. What did he do on Saturday? Friday night, he did not sleep. You know what? His wife had warned him against passing judgment on Jesus Christ. Did he listen? He did not listen. He decided that the wife did not know what she was doing. So do you think there was peace in that house on the night of Friday? After the events of Friday, after the earthquake, after people are seen rising from the graves, after darkness during the day, do you think in Pilate's house there was peace? So, we see Pilate on Saturday asking himself, could I have done more? Could I have done more? We see the chief priests in a panic mode. Who is going to sew together the torn curtain? And can I tell you something? The reason why the curtain was torn is because the old order of worship was over. The curtain was only important because of the Day of Atonement, the day when the sins of the Jewish people were atoned for. That had been accomplished on Friday with Jesus' sacrifice. And can I tell you that from then until now, Judaism has continued to try to sew back together the curtain, and it has been impossible because it is not necessary. Where was Peter? Peter was crying the whole 36 hours. He spent this lockdown crying bitterly when he remembered he had denied the Lord. So are you listening to me, and have you denied the Lord in any way? I want to tell you that this Saturday, the Saturday in Holy Week, you have company in Peter. Where was Thomas? Thomas was counting his losses. He did not believe that 3 years of following Christ had come to this. Nothing. So he went and hid himself to go and count his losses. Where was John? John probably went together with Mary, the mother of Jesus. And John was busy looking at the challenges ahead because of the responsibilities that were put on him. You know, Jesus had told him to take care of this woman. Now he was doing his calculations and asking, how am I going to survive with an extra family to look after? So are you here and in this lockdown, you are wondering how you are going to survive because of the added responsibilities that this lockdown might bring? Maybe a sister or a cousin or a friend you have been staying with have lost their jobs, and now the responsibility for their upkeep is on yours, and you are wondering, how will I manage? Tonight you have company. John the disciple. What about the rest of the disciples? They were fearful, they were hopeless, they were helpless. They went and bundled themselves together in the upper room, and they sat there not knowing what will happen next. So are you sitting at home and you are wondering what will happen next? You are blank. You try to think beyond today and you can't think. You don't know what will happen. The lockdown in Nairobi for 21 days and Mombasa and Kilifi and Kwale has started, and you are wondering what will happen now. Are you blank? Are you just there? You have company tonight. The rest of the disciples, they were bundled together. They were hopeless, helpless, and fearful. They sat there. They had nothing to look forward to. What about the women? The mother of Jesus and the other women that were there that went through the whole process. They even witnessed Jesus dying. They even witnessed his burial. They followed from a distance and they saw where they laid him. What were they thinking? What were they doing? And I want to tell you that what the women were doing, they were looking forward to Sunday morning. Why were they looking forward to Sunday morning? Because according to them, it was not over until it was over. They had some unfinished business. For them, it was not a chapter closed. They would close the chapter on Sunday morning when they went, they would go and anoint the body of Jesus Christ. So according to them, they were looking forward to Sunday morning. Everybody else did not know what to expect. But the women, they knew what they wanted. It was not over. There was an unfinished business. They were going to go to the tomb one more time. They were going to visit where Jesus was one more time. On this Saturday in Holy Week, there is one more time. I pray and hope that we can be like the women, that it was not over until it was over. What they were going to do on Sunday morning and what they actually found is two different things. But for them, it was not over. For everybody else, it was over. For the women, they had some unfinished business. I want to submit to you that during your time of gloom, during your time when things are not working out, during the crisis, in the midst of the crisis, don't give up. There is yet something you can do. There is yet something you can do for the Lord. And I want to say that because the Lord who searches the hearts was seeing what was in the hearts of these women, they were not disappointed. They were the first at the tomb the following morning, and it was not a disappointment. So they could have said, okay, kama ameenda wacha aende. They did not do that. There is a Kikuyu saying, duteagwo utali mwatie. We must do what must be done. We must keep moving. We must keep moving and doing what must be done until we draw our last breath. This was Saturday in Holy Week, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you.